Welcome to Canada's podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Canada's podcast. It's the Atlantic Canada version, and we've got awesome guests as always, and today is no different from that. I wanted to introduce you to Mr. Andrew Murray. Andrew is the founder and CEO of Aslan Renewables, a PEI-based revolutionary company who is revolutionizing renewable energy with scalable modular dams designed to bring Canada's 50,000 historical hydro sites back to the life with modern technology. So, Andrew, this is very interesting because one is, how do you know there's 50,000 historical hydro sites? Well, I should say that's probably easy when you get right down to it. Google shoots, but why dams, and how does it relate back to you, who you are as Andrew Murray?
Yeah, it's a great question, Rivers. And first, thanks very much for inviting me. I've been looking forward to this, as I told you, and we're really excited to share this story with Canadians.
Right on.
Let me start with the dams. This is an opportunity that I think most of the country is just not aware of. I certainly wasn't when we embarked on it. We have found that throughout, like from coast to coast, there are numerous kind of medium scale hydro sites that have been sort of decommissioned, kind of abandoned in the 40s, 50s, and 60s as the country moved collectively towards larger hydro installations and cross-border power brokerage that we know today, right? So if we think of hydro in Canada right now, we're thinking of massive installs, things like Muskrat Falls, northern Quebec. We're all kind of familiar with this. But what we don't know, or what often we forget, is the sites that powered our important communities, our towns that became the major cities. These are sites that were medium scale, used to house water mills and things like that. And they were all decommissioned when we started building these massive hydro stations. So Aslan's mission here, we design and manufacture in PEI a modular hydro dam system that's of medium scale. So these things, they power about 20 homes per site, and they're built to fit existing infrastructure. They're built to fit the infrastructure that was left behind when those tens of thousands of dams were retired, right?
Very cool. Kind of reminds me of the decommission of the wharf system along the riverway system for just boating. And so,
that's right.
Why for you? What's it? There's always that passion for a journey that an entrepreneur goes on. This podcast is about entrepreneurs. So why is it important to you? Why is it fun for you? Why is it passionate for you?
I mean, it started as something that was naturally fun for me. And I want to say about Canadian entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship in this country that led me down this road. I started as a tech founder about 15 years ago. I was supported by some of our great institutions in this country, Real Ventures, a lot of groups in Toronto, and we built great tech products, right? I went through Founder Fuel as an accelerator. The skills that I picked up going through those steps in my career kind of gave me this knowledge to look at an opportunity like this and really realize the ability to, one, like build minimum viable products, garage scale kind of iteration, and then to have a keen nose for scale, right? And so where this really became a passion for me is, understanding the opportunity, and then and the fact that just as kind of a tech entrepreneur, as someone who has an agile mindset, who likes to make things, right? We could tackle that opportunity, and that it could really achieve an economy of scale. That if we did take those initial startup steps, right, that our entrepreneurial community knows so well, the impact that this could have for Canadians would be tremendous. So that's where it became a passion project for me. Like, we started doing this on one single dam in rural PEI, and it worked, and then we realized that there were about 170 of those sites across the province where we could apply this. And just there in that one kind of provincial like sample, the energy output is upwards of 20,000 megawatt hours per year. That's a massive chunk, So again, like we go back to that garage level, that bench scale iteration. When you can get that right, and then you can have a keen eye for market fit, it gets really exciting really fast.
That is so cool. So does a neighborhood, you said up to 20 homes, who's your customer?
So the customer right now is government. What we're working with provincial governments across the country. We started with PEI, so we built a PEI power purchase agreement there with the island, so that the island can purchase that power, distribute it to islanders, to people across the province. But the same model is available and works well in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Newfoundland, Ontario, Alberta, all the way across. So the same model that we've put in place in PEI, we want to replicate that with the other provinces. So it's really new news. We've just opened conversations with Nova Scotia and New Brunswick.
Nice.
We do the same thing with Newfoundland. But yeah, I mean, the primary customer is government. From there are some other opportunities. When we think about modular hydro, when we start taking this concept of large scale and pulling it down, making it more accessible, we can do the same thing for industry. We can do it for tidal. We look at concrete plants across the country that use a huge amount of water flow. This approach allows us to recycle a lot of that lost power, and bring all of those industries closer to net zero over time, right?
I love it. So talk to me about the first 6 months of your business as it relates to customer acquisition. So when we're interested on your feet on the ground, what's happening in your life in that first 6 months to a year?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, Rivers, it's a little different, like starting to build a power company, an energy company in this country.
Yeah, I bet.
I've been through the cycles of building apps, building web tech, stuff like that, and going out into the market, getting that first customer, really like hitting the phones and all that stuff.
Right.
And I live by that. Like, I'm passionate about this. This was a little bit different. I mean, we had some major environmental considerations to take care of. We had to work closely with groups like the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, very closely with local Indigenous groups, to understand, the history of these waterways and what's deeply important to them. We had to work with fishermen, local communities, municipalities, all sorts, right, to really get the communities on board. Mm-hmm. So that was a major step. Right after we figured out that this was possible, we started pulling together advisory groups that represented all of those different categories to say, can we do this? Is it, and how can we best collaborate with you? So honestly, it took about 3 years of discussions after we had sort of pulled together an MVP, to build the support within the community and within government to then say, okay, we can launch a new energy company that's focused on hydro, focused on water that's running through Canada, and we can scale it properly so that we can have an equitable business.
Yeah, that's really cool. So talk to us about your team that works with you to help you get to that. I mean, including, partners that you want to make a reference to. That would be great.
Absolutely. So right off the bat, we built an engineering team that was represented by a great consulting group in Charlottetown, PEI, called Coles and Associates. So this is an engineering group that covers everything from sustainability, a lot of work in environment, and they had a huge amount of experience within kind of government, intersecting with government, and building these big projects. Doug Coles was an early partner in the business. He came in as an advisor to me personally, just as a great support system and kind of a coach. And Doug kind of brought me through the major engineering feats that we're going to have to go into this. So that was a major step. Second to that, like right away, we got into, we built an advisory group of local Indigenous. And this was our environmental stuff. So before we started filling out those applications with the Department of Environment or DFO, we brought these guys together to say, look, what are the pitfalls? What are the roadblocks that we should expect? How can you help it? How can we work together, right, to get around that stuff? The Mi'kmaq Confederacy of Prince Edward Island, the Abbotsford First Nations groups, we had some just incredible champions in there. And Rivers, there was something special in that early step, which was we went to them first. Like we sat down at that table, really fresh, knowing really nothing. And built a great relationship that, today, when we look for new locations in the country, where can we put this? What would be a great candidate site for a new dam? We call on those First Nations groups because they know the land so well, right? Yeah, it was really phenomenal. And then from there, the support gathered. We built great partnerships with watersheds, with fisheries groups and communities. And then eventually got to government. That was sort of the last step. And I got to say, the PEI government has been an excellent partner. They've entertained, our questions and sort of the baby steps that we needed to take in order to make this real. And I couldn't give them more respect. They certainly gave it to me. So that's how it started. And now today, the major partners who are coming into the projects are universities. This is a bit of a lean startup move, to be honest. The universities in Atlantic Canada, for sure, I'm sure in the rest of the country as well, but in Atlantic Canada and the Maritimes, our universities have killer programs to get their students engaged with early companies like this. To help us do our modeling, our testing, making sure that, we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's. So instead of me, jumping into the market and hiring a bunch of senior engineers, for example, we built student groups that could tackle these problems with us. And we got really lucky. Now that the company's maturing, a lot of those students are coming into the marketplace and sitting down with us to talk about careers.
That's cool. Talk to me about the size of the dams. If you could just give our audience a perspective as to what it is that you're ultimately outputting to put onto the river system, waterway system.
Yeah, the dam configuration, obviously, this is my baby. This is a masterpiece. The dams are very small. I'll walk you through kind of a description of it, and I'll try and stop me and ask questions because I'm still trying to get this down.
Yeah, that's cool.
I'd love to throw a picture on the screen, but
you said a lean startup. Don't worry about it. We're cool. It's entrepreneurs you're talking to. It's all good.
You got it. So the dam, first of all, is a passive collection system, meaning, we're working with existing sites where you've got a whole pile of water falling over an edge down, a decent elevation, maybe 10 feet. So these sites, again, these used to be the sites of water mills and stuff. Those were yanked out in the 50s and the 60s. And now it's just kind of a concrete culvert that each province sort of installed to hold that water system in place. So we fit in a catch basin into each one of these things, catches 100% of the water that's falling over it. And then it funnels it down into 4 to 6 modular turbines. And this is where the modular nature of the project really comes into play and creates a ton of value. All of that water, and there's quite a bit in this country falling over those little installations, those dams, gets collected, pushed down into a set of individual turbines that are about the size of a beer keg, right? Okay. So again, moving from that massive scale hydro system down to something more accessible, you've got 4 turbines that, you can put in the trunk of a Corolla, right? And
Corolla, I love it. Yes, sir.
And you can these are accessible at the top of the water level. So it all catches at the top. It passively kind of goes over. There's no suction. There's no disruption of kind of the ecosystem there. It's the same water flow that's happening right now. They funnel into these 4 or 6 turbines. Those turbines pull the water down through props, which turns these motors, and then that's fed through conduit right into the ground on shore, and then underground it goes up to a power pole and right onto the grid. The beauty of having those small turbines create all this energy as opposed to one big system is we can play with them. And again, like that startup mentality really factored into the design here, because I can have, our group or a group of students go out and say, well, I think that we can optimize these turbines a little bit. We can tinker with them and make some small changes. And so you can imagine on a single site that's housing 4 turbines, we can maintain them, we can play with them, we can horse race them to make little changes and see if one does better than the other. We can really iterate and test. So that's made it really, really easy to optimize, easy to work with, and easy to grow. The other thing that it does is it's such a light system, right, that we can take them out or put them in very easily, without a massive amount of risk to the company, without a massive investment. And so, for example, if we have a community come in that's very interested in having these running in their community, but they're concerned about the amount of power it's going to make, or is it going to? Who knows? There are all sorts of concerns with like a new system like this. This thing is agile enough that we can put it in, run it for 4 months, and then if it's not working well, we can take it out without destroying the business. You see,
right.
So it just sets us up for success.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. You're still in that startup space, so it kind of eliminates that sense of risk of what if this doesn't work. Don't worry about it. We'll just take it out. No big deal. It's not lost on anybody.
You got it.
For these, you said the government was your customer. Is it primarily municipal? Is it provincial, or are the feds, or all three?
It's provincial for the most part. Okay. We've seen, especially with some of the carbon incentives, the net zero initiatives, things like this, the provinces in Canada have phenomenal programs to support this stuff. And in fact, we're piggybacking on solar and wind, right?
Nice.
When solar and wind came into, I guess, the renewable mainstream in Canada, governments responded. They built programs to support, private entrepreneurs like me coming in and innovating in the space. So what we can do now basically I'm saying it's already proven. So we can say, look, you did this great deal to support the wind farm over here. We would like the same thing. We'll put these in ourselves. You guys buy the power in the same way you buy it from solar farms or wind farms. We're not reinventing it that way. So it's really good. The other thing that I'll say, it's we have one, and it's a bit tongue in cheek, but I've got to mention it because I'm really excited about this. And the nature of hydro rivers is it's extremely stable. It's a very stable source of renewable energy because that water is flowing 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, right? Very minimal variability. So you compare that to wind and solar, it makes a huge difference. In Canada, obviously we have windy days and not windy days. We have sunny days and cloudy days. And so the energy that's generated from those two categories is quite unpredictable. It's quite spiky, right? And it turns out it's very difficult for large scale grids, these grids that were put in place a long, long time ago, to manage that kind of variability. Hydro, on the other hand, is a very predictable, very stable and consistent power source. So, every time that we put in another one of these dams, the energy goes straight onto the grid. It doesn't disrupt anybody. It doesn't scare anyone at the power company. You know what I mean? It's really, really friendly to our existing systems. So I think that's very important to mention. Every single dam that goes in the amount of renewable energy in this country goes up a little bit and a little bit and a little bit. It stays there. It doesn't go like this, right?
Right.
And that's an important part of the story.
Yeah, that's very cool. So for those of us that are neophytes when it comes to damming and so on, how do you connect the energy that is generated with the grid? How does that work?
So you need a specific type of transformer, and these exist all over the country. So a typical power pole, you're just going to have some equipment to kind of move those power lines along. But every once in a while, you'll see a transformer there. And those transformers are able to accept incoming power or balance power. And so it's not really different infrastructure than what you would need for residential solar. We have great programs in Canada to accept kind of surplus solar from a home. Say you have a large house in a particularly sunny area and you're capturing a lot of sunlight and generating more power than you may need. You can put that power actually back onto the grid and the government will purchase that from you, right? This system being kind of right in between, a residential system and a larger scale power output kind of gets to piggyback on that as well and just say, well, look, we'll just plug into this, don't worry about it.
I love it. There's all kinds of examples of that happening already in another tech sector. But tell me, what do you do to hang out with the non part of your world, the non company part? What do you do to keep busy, look after the fun side of your life? Not that this is fun, but you get my point. What do you do to balance?
It's a good question. It's a good question for entrepreneurs, I've got a lot of different answers. I have a real affinity for building projects. This is not my first company and not my last. I've built I honestly spend a lot of downtime building. Still, I do a lot of e-commerce projects, a lot of kind of board advisory stuff like that. Like I love the entrepreneurship community that we have here. And I spend a lot of time in there.
Nice.
Doing stuff like this with you right now, like this is just making my day, man.
Yeah, great. That's fantastic.
So, there's a lot of that. Anyway, ever since my first company in Montreal, I've been really stuck on this, and I'm always looking for something.
Well, it's great. One of my favorite entrepreneurs, the quote that he said, "It's not work-life balance. It's all just life, is what it is." And so there's nothing to be apologetic about spending a lot of time and doing what you love. That's all about life. Andrew, how do people get in touch with you and all the things that you're doing?
Well, Rivers, the best way, I'll include my personal email here, but the best way is to go to our website. And, it's been amazing. We've done a little bit of a communications push over the past little while. You probably said we've had an incredible honor come from London, sort of spotlighting the company. And I can talk a little bit about that, but we had sort of a bit of a launch of the business very recently. And I've been so incredibly inspired by the number of people who have come to the website, hit the contact form and reached out with either just supportive words, like we've always thought about this in Canada. It's really exciting to see it happening, to, communities reaching out saying, I've got 10 of these in my riding or in my city, could you have a look at Bridgewater? Could you have a look at Peterborough? Could you, et cetera. So that's the best way to get in touch. And in fact, it's been so incredible. We've had a lot of inbound from outside of Canada as well. One of the benefits of building hydro systems that are this kind of compact, this easy to understand and install, is they are pretty much the perfect size to power kind of rural communities and even developing communities, right? We had, I'll tell you a story just from this morning. It's because it was super inspiring to me and it's just top of mind. We had a message come in from a town in Bosnia, who said, "Look, they've got they have an interesting story. Since the war in Bosnia, they haven't been able. They've had trouble kind of balancing their grid. So voltage stabilization is an issue out there, and so they moving to renewables. They can't really adopt solar or wind because it's too unstable.
Right.
So their only option is hydro." And so we went straight into exploring an export project with Bosnia to put as many units as we can on the ground and make this easy for them.
Neat.
So yeah, the website is the way to get to me. And we really.
What's the spelling for the website? Is it just as simple?
Yeah, it's aslanrenewables.com.
Perfect. And LinkedIn, are you a fan of LinkedIn?
I'm all over it, as you.
Well, that's great. That's another way we can all get a hold of you. Well, listen, Andrew, this has been just a great interview, conversation, I think, more than anything about what you're doing at PEI. And I congratulate you on your journey. Congratulate you on wanting to get out there and not make it just a small project, make it a project that's going to impact thousands and thousands of people. I think that's really cool. And doing it from PEI. Can you just talk about the PEI entrepreneurs ecosystem? Because although this is an Atlantic Canada version, we like to know what's going on with the local startup community and supporting what it is you're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. We have a very vibrant startup community in PEI. I'm really proud of the work that the province innovation PEI has done. The university has done a great job of supporting entrepreneurs. We have an incubator accelerator here called the Startup Zone, which is always full of people, always full of new ideas moving around. We have our first local VC showed up on Prince Edward Island a couple of years ago, called Island Capital Partners.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm super proud to be here, proud to be part of that community. And I hope this is a great feather in its hat, Rivers.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're on the right track with everything. To your background and connections and so on, I suspect we'll be seeing another success story from you. So thank you so much for joining us on Canada's podcast today, Andrew. We really appreciate it. Continued good luck. Thanks for reaching out. Have a great day.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure.